On the scorched, rust-colored dunes of Zalthra, where twin suns blazed across a sky painted in molten gold and bruised violet, life clung to existence like lichen on stone. The planet was a vast desert wasteland, its surface cracked and ancient, winds howling secrets through canyons older than memory. Towering spires of black rock rose from the sands like the bones of forgotten gods, and between them sprawled the infamous Bazaar of Chains. A sprawling, chaotic marketplace built into the side of a crater, where beings from across the galaxy came to buy, sell, and disappear. It was here, under the flickering glow of neon signs powered by scavenged solar cells, that a 12-year-old boy named Joran first saw her. She was small, barely taller than his shoulder, with skin the deep, rich purple of twilight grapes and hair as white as fresh snowfall on the high dunes. Her eyes, large, luminous, and silver like liquid mercury, darted around the cage with the restless energy of a trapped bird. She wore tattered silken robes, once elegant but now stained with dust and something darker. Around her neck was a glowing collar that pulsed faintly red, humming with energy every time she moved too quickly. A sign above her read, "Rare Zalvana Princess. Nonverbal, obedient, 700 credits." Joran didn't know what Zalvana meant, only that no one should be sold like meat at a butcher's stall. He wasn't supposed to be in the slave market. Children weren't allowed, especially not poor human orphans scraping by on odd jobs for the sand traders. But Joran had snuck in, chasing a mechanical scarab beetle that had stolen his last piece of dried fruit. He'd followed it past the spice stalls, past the cages of chirping six-legged lizards, until he found himself staring into the eyes of the caged girl. Something about her gaze stopped him cold. Not fear, not anger, but a quiet, burning intelligence, like she was measuring him, judging whether he was worth noticing. A gruff voice snapped behind him. "You lost, gutter rat?" A hulking Trosian with 3 arms and breath that smelled like burnt rubber loomed over him. "This ain't a playground." Joran swallowed hard but didn't look away from the girl. "How much is she?" The Trosian barked a laugh. 700. You got 700 credits? Didn't think so. Now scram before I feed you to my pet sandworm. Joran clenched his fists. He had 32 credits saved from weeks of hauling water barrels and cleaning hover trucks. Not even close. But he couldn't leave her there. There was something about her. The way she held herself, proud despite the cage, like a queen forced to kneel. He remembered his mother's words before she died in a dust storm 2 years prior. Kindness doesn't need money, Joran. It just needs courage. So he did the stupidest thing he'd ever done. While the Trosian turned to argue with a buyer over a malfunctioning translator drone, Joran slipped a tiny EMP tool from his pocket. One he'd salvaged from a wrecked supply pod and spent months repairing. It was meant to restart broken comms, but if used right, it could fry weak circuits. He jammed it against the lock of the cage and pressed the button. Sparks flew. The collar on the girl's neck flickered and died. The cage door groaned open. For a heartbeat, they just stared at each other. Then she moved. Like a desert fox, she darted out, grabbing Joran's wrist with surprising strength. They bolted through the market, weaving between startled vendors and angry shouts. Alarms wailed. Blaster fire sizzled past them, scorching the air. Joran's heart pounded so loud he thought it might burst. He didn't know why he'd done it. He didn't know who she was. But when she squeezed his hand as they ducked into a narrow crevice between 2 sandstone buildings, he knew he'd do it again. They ran for hours, through tunnels beneath the city, across dunes where ghost lights danced at night, until they reached the edge of the glass wastes. A barren plain of fused silica where nothing grew and few dared to tread. There, exhausted and panting, they collapsed behind a half-buried shipwreck. She looked at him, then slowly reached up and touched her throat where the collar had been. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Joran frowned. "Can't you talk?" She shook her head, then pointed to her ears, miming something being broken. Then she tapped her temple and made a scribbling motion in the air. "You write?" he asked. She nodded. With trembling fingers, she pulled a small, smooth stone from inside her robe and pressed it to the sand. Words glowed faintly as she traced them. "My name is Vela. I am last of Zalvane royal line. Cannot speak. Voice taken. Mind free." Joran blinked. "You're a princess?" She nodded again, then wrote, "You freed me. No one has done that. Thank you." He grinned, suddenly giddy. "Well, your highness, you're welcome. Name's Joran. And I think we're both in deep sand now." Over the next few days, they survived together. Joran taught her how to find water-seep caves and avoid the acid-spitting skinks that lurked in the cracks. Vela, in turn, showed him how to read the stars of her people, how certain constellations signaled storms, or safe paths, or ancient ruins filled with forgotten tech. She couldn't speak, but she communicated with gestures, expressions, and those glowing stones that responded to her touch. Joran learned to understand her silence better than most people's speeches. One night, as they sat beneath a sky blazing with alien stars, Vela wrote something that made Joran's chest tighten. "I must go home. My people need me, but I will never forget you." He tried to smile. "Yeah? Well, don't get all mushy. Just promise you'll come back someday. With, like, space cake or something." She laughed silently, her shoulders shaking, and for the first time, Joran saw real joy in her eyes. The next morning, a sleek, silver craft descended from the clouds like a falling moon. It hummed with soft blue light, shaped like a crescent blade. From it stepped tall, purple-skinned warriors in flowing armor, their white hair braided with threads of starlight. They bowed deeply to Vela, who stood tall despite her size. She turned to Joran, took his hands, and placed one of her glowing stones in his palm. Then she wrote, "This remembers you. When I am queen, I will return. Wait for me." And then she was gone, rising into the sky aboard the ship, vanishing among the stars. Joran stood there long after the dust settled, the stone warm in his hand. 18 years passed. Joran was no longer the skinny orphan boy with dust in his hair and hope in his pockets. He was a man now, broad-shouldered and sun-leathered, with a thick braid of dark brown hair tied back and a jagged scar across his left cheek from a run-in with a sand panther. He lived in a rebuilt cargo hauler-turned-home on the outskirts of Dusthold, the largest settlement on Zalthra. He worked as a salvage pilot, diving into ancient wrecks buried beneath the dunes, pulling up old tech to sell or trade. He was good at it, patient, clever, fearless. People respected him. Some even called him lucky. But every year, on the same day, he climbed the highest dune near his home and watched the sky. He never stopped believing she'd come back. That day came again. The twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sands in fire and shadow. Joran sat on a flat rock, sipping bitter tea from a chipped cup, the old glowing stone resting beside him. It hadn't lit up in years. He figured maybe it had finally died. Then the sky changed. A ripple passed through the atmosphere, like heat haze over metal. The stars seemed to blink. And then, silently, impossibly, a ship appeared. Not just any ship. It was massive, a graceful arc of shimmering obsidian and silver, lined with veins of pulsing violet light. It didn't descend. It floated, lowering itself like a leaf on still water. No engines roared. No alarms sounded. Just a deep, resonant hum that vibrated in the bones. Joran's breath caught. The ship settled in the valley below, kicking up no dust, making no sound beyond that gentle hum. A ramp extended, glowing with soft light, and from it stepped her. Vela, taller now, regal, wrapped in flowing robes of deep amethyst threaded with silver. Her white hair fell like a waterfall down her back, crowned with a delicate circlet that sparkled like crushed diamonds. Her skin still held that beautiful purple hue, and her silver eyes, still sharp, still intelligent, scanned the dunes until they landed on him. Joran stood frozen. She walked toward him, not hurried, not slow, like royalty approaching a monument. Her boots made no sound on the sand. When she reached him, she stopped, studying his face like she was reading a book she'd missed for decades. Then, without a word, she raised her hand and spoke. Her voice was low, melodic, like wind through crystal trees. "Joran." He nearly dropped his tea. You can talk?" She smiled, a slow, radiant thing. "I can now. The voice thief who stole it is dead. Executed for treason." He blinked. "Wait, you executed someone? For enslaving my people?" "Yes." Her smile widened. "Don't look so shocked. I'm a queen now. Queens do shocking things." He laughed, shaky and disbelieving. "You're really here. I told you I would return." She reached into her robe and pulled out an object, a perfect replica of the glowing stone he still carried. "I kept yours safe, charged it every day." He looked down at his own stone. Slowly, hesitantly, he picked it up. It lit up. Words formed in the sand between them. "Thank you. For everything." Joran felt something hot behind his eyes. "You don't have to thank me. I just couldn't stand seeing someone locked up like that. You gave me more than freedom. she said softly. You gave me hope. When I was broken, you treated me like a person, not a prize. You shared your food, your water, your stories. You made me believe kindness still existed in this galaxy. He shrugged, suddenly awkward. I mean, I guess I liked having someone around who didn't argue about whose turn it was to clean the filters. She laughed. A real, full sound that echoed slightly in the quiet desert. Then she grew serious. I've come with a request. Oh, he raised an eyebrow. Let me guess. Need help finding ancient treasure? Or hunting down another evil warlord? No, she said. I've come to ask you to be my king. Silence. Even the wind seemed to pause. Joran stared at her. Your king? Yes. As in a married? Like, husband? Ruler of your planet and all that? If you accept, yes. He took a step back. Vela, I'm a junk hauler. I fix broken thrusters and argue with customs bots over import taxes. I don't even know how to use a royal fork. You don't need forks, she said, stepping closer. You need heart, courage, humility. You risked your life for a stranger. You've lived with integrity, even when no one was watching. My people need a leader who understands struggle, not just privilege. And, she paused, her silver eyes locking onto his. I need you. Joran exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. This is insane. You're a queen. A literal space queen. I'm just, Joran, from nowhere, with a rusty ship and a dog that eats batteries. The dog stays, she said firmly. I like dogs. He blinked. Wait, how do you know about Bolt? I've watched you, she admitted. From afar. Every year I sent scouts. I needed to know you were safe, happy, alive. She reached out, touching his scar gently. I saw you fight off raiders with a wrench. I saw you give your last rations to a stranded family. I saw you sit on this dune, every year waiting. His throat tightened. You never came. I wasn't ready, she said. My people were scattered, our cities in ruins. I spent years rebuilding, uniting the clans, restoring our language, our history. I had to become strong enough to rule, and worthy of asking you to stand beside me. He looked at her, really looked, not at the queen, not at the power, but at the girl who once held his hand while running from slavers. The one who laughed without sound. The one who wrote thank you in the sand. And he realized he'd never stop thinking about her. This isn't just about duty, is it? He asked quietly. No, she whispered. It never was. The wind picked up, swirling sand around them. Somewhere far off, a nightbird cried. Joran took a deep breath. So, what happens if I say no? Then I return to Zalvana Prime, she said, and rule alone. But I will always keep a room ready for you. And every year, I will send a ship to this dune. Just in case. He smirked. Trying to guilt me, your majesty? Desperately, she admitted, smiling. He looked at the sky, at the massive ship glowing in the dusk, at the woman, no, the queen, who had crossed galaxies to find him. And then he did something unexpected. He knelt, not in submission but in respect. Vela of the Zalvana, he said, voice steady. I may not be a prince or a warrior or a diplomat, but I am loyal. I am brave when I have to be, and I never break a promise. He looked up at her. If you'll have me, I'll be your king. Her breath hitched. For the first time, he saw tears in her eyes, silver droplets that caught the last light of the suns. She didn't answer with words. Instead, she stepped forward, took his face in her hands, and kissed him. It was soft, brief, but electric, like a star igniting in his chest. When she pulled back, she whispered, Then rise, King Joran. Our journey begins tonight. Behind them, the ship hummed louder, its lights flaring like a celebration. Warriors in violet armor emerged, forming a silent honor guard. Music, deep, haunting, beautiful, drifted from unseen speakers, a Zalvana hymn of reunion and destiny. Joran stood, taking her hand. So, does being king mean I get to rename the royal dessert? She rolled her eyes. Only if you stop calling it space cake. Deal. As they walked toward the ship, Bolt the battery-eating dog came sprinting out of the shadows, barking wildly, tail wagging like a metronome. Vela laughed and scooped him up, despite his enthusiastic licking. He's part of the package, Joran said. I expected nothing less. The ramp closed behind them. The ship lifted without sound, rising into the violet sky, leaving no trace but footprints in the sand, and a single glowing stone, still pulsing with the words, "Thank you." Across the galaxy, on a lush world hidden behind nebulae of pink and gold, a great city awaited. Towers of crystal and light stretched toward the heavens. Gardens bloomed with bioluminescent flowers. And in the heart of the capital, a throne stood empty, waiting. But not for long. News spread like wildfire. The lost princess had returned, and she had brought her king. There were celebrations in the streets, songs sung in ancient tongues, fireworks that painted the sky with the colors of dawn. Ambassadors from 100 worlds arrived, curious, skeptical, amazed. How could a human, a mere child from a desert backwater, be chosen as consort to the Queen of Zalvani? They would soon learn, because Joran was not just a king by title. He was a king by action. Within weeks, he reformed the royal treasury, exposing centuries of corruption. He opened trade routes with neighboring systems, bringing food and medicine to starving colonies. He established schools for former slaves, teaching them skills, languages, hope. And when a rogue fleet of mercenary ships threatened the outer moons, it was Joran who devised the trap, using old salvage tactics and a modified ion pulse from a scrapped freighter to disable them without firing a single shot. The people loved him, not because he was powerful, but because he listened, because he remembered what it was like to have nothing, because he ate with the workers in the mess halls and played games with the children in the palace gardens, and because, every night, he sat with Vela on the balcony of the Star Spire, looking up at the endless cosmos, holding her hand, and telling her stories of the boy who once freed a princess from a cage. But peace never lasts. Whispers began to spread. In the outer rim, a cult rose, devotees of the old voice thief, who believed Vela's reign was unnatural, that she had tainted the bloodline by choosing a human. They called themselves the Silent Choir, and they worshipped silence as purity, speech as sin. Their leader, a fanatical priest named Zorith, declared Joran an abomination, a mute king ruling through a stolen crown. First it was just graffiti, then sabotage, then attacks. A bomb exploded in the trade district. A poisoned gift was sent to the royal chambers. Assassins in shadow cloaks were caught scaling the palace walls. Security tightened. Joran trained with the royal guards, learning Zalvana combat, fluid, precise movements that used balance over brute force. Vela refused to hide. "If they want a target," she said, "they'll have two." One night, as they reviewed defense plans, Joran noticed something strange. Pattern. Every attack, every threat, they came from within the palace network. Leaked schedules, compromised codes. Someone was feeding information to the enemy. His jaw tightened. "We have a traitor." Vela didn't flinch. "I know. I've known for weeks." "Then why haven't you?" "Because I wanted them to reveal themselves fully," she said calmly. "And because I needed proof. Without it, I risk tearing the court apart." Joran stared at her. "You're playing a dangerous game." "So are they," she replied. "And I intend to win." Together they set a trap. Using a fake itinerary, they announced a private visit to the Moon of Echoes, a sacred site where Vela's ancestors were buried. Guards were pulled back. Security relaxed. The palace went dark. But Joran and Vela never left. Hidden in a secret chamber beneath the throne room, they watched through surveillance feeds as a figure in royal advisor robes slipped into the docking bay, sending a coded message into the void. The guards moved fast. The traitor was captured. Lyra, Vela's childhood tutor, once trusted, now twisted by grief and ideology. In the trial that followed, Lyra spat venom. "You disgrace the throne. You let a foreigner wear the crown while our people suffer." Vela stood tall. "Our people suffer because of greed, not love. Joran has done more for Zalvani in 6 months than you have in 60 years. And if loving him is a crime, then I proudly confess." The court fell silent. Lyra was exiled, not executed. "Mercy," Vela said, "is the true mark of power." Still, the threat remained. Zorith vanished. The Silent Choir went underground. And Joran knew they weren't done. Then came the vision. During a ceremony beneath the twin moons, Vela suddenly froze. Her eyes rolled back. She collapsed. When she woke, she was pale, trembling. "They're coming," she whispered. "Not to kill us, to take our voices, to make us silent forever." Joran held her. "Then we'll fight, together." And so they prepared, not with fear, but with fire, because the boy who once freed a princess from a cage was now the king who would protect an entire kingdom. The days that followed Vela's vision were cloaked in a strange, electric tension. The Moon of Echoes ceremony had been meant to honor the ancestors, light floating orbs released into the night sky, each carrying a whisper of memory. But instead, it became the moment destiny cracked open like a desert seed pod in the rain. When Vela collapsed, her body rigid and eyes glowing silver with ancient energy, Joran caught her before she struck the marble floor. Her breath came in sharp gasps, and then, in a voice not entirely her own, a chorus of echoes from centuries past, she spoke. When silence returns, the throne shall tremble, the voiceless shall rise, the king shall fall, unless he learns to speak what cannot be said. Then she was still. Joran carried her to their chambers, ignoring the stunned crowd, the murmurs, the fear in the eyes of the court. Bolt followed close behind, growling low in his throat, ears flat, an animal sensing storms before they break. Vela woke at dawn, drenched in sweat, clutching her chest as if something had clawed its way out. Joran sat beside her, holding her hand, refusing to let go. "What happened?" he asked gently. She looked at him, her silver eyes wide with something between awe and terror. "I didn't just see the future," she whispered. "I heard them, my ancestors. They've been waiting. They warned me. Zorith isn't just a fanatic. He's a vessel, a conduit for an ancient force, the Hollow Chorus. Beings who existed before language, who believe speech is a corruption of purity. They feed on silence, and they want our voices forever." Joran frowned. "So they're not just rebels. They're ghosts. Worse," she said. "They're real, and they're coming." Over the next weeks, the kingdom braced. Security doubled. The royal archives were scoured for records of the Hollow Chorus. Myths dismissed as bedtime tales for children. But deep within the oldest vaults, beneath layers of encrypted data and forgotten glyphs, they found truth. Millennia ago, the Zalvani had sealed away a cult that sought to erase all sound, believing silence was divine. The ritual required sacrifice, 3 voices of power, taken in darkness. The last attempt had nearly destroyed their civilization. And now history was repeating. Meanwhile, life in the palace continued. Because love, even under threat, refuses to be silenced. Joran and Vela grew closer than ever. He learned to read her people's written language, tracing elegant symbols with clumsy fingers. She, in turn, began teaching him Zalvana customs, not as duty, but as joy. One evening, she surprised him with a private dance beneath the aurora-lit dome, moving with such grace that he forgot to breathe. Another morning, he cooked her a terrible, smoky breakfast of rehydrated eggs and alien peppers, laughing as she pretended to die dramatically after one bite. "You're trying to poison me?" she teased, fanning her mouth. "Admit it. I'm expanding your palate," he shot back. "Next time I'll add glitter. For romance." She rolled her eyes but kissed him anyway. Even Bolt found happiness, befriending a 6-legged palace cat named Nebula, who tolerated his hyperactive antics only because he shared his stolen snacks. But peace is fragile. One night the lights flickered, not across the city, just in their bedroom. Then the air turned cold. A hum began, low and wrong, like a song played backward. The glowing stones on the wall dimmed. Bolt barked once, then fell silent, frozen mid-growl. Joran sat up, heart pounding. Vela was already awake, eyes wide. "They're here." From the shadows, a figure emerged, tall, wrapped in flowing black robes, face hidden beneath a mask of polished obsidian. It didn't walk. It glided, leaving no footprints, no sound. Behind it, 3 more appeared, forming a silent ring around the bed. Zorith. His voice, when it came, was not a voice at all. It was a vibration in the mind, words etched directly into thought. "You have defiled the sacred hush. You have crowned noise over silence. Now you will learn the beauty of nothing." Joran reached for the pulse dagger under his pillow, but his hand wouldn't move. An invisible force held him down, pressing him into the mattress like gravity had doubled. Vela tried to scream, but no sound came out. Her mouth moved, her chest heaved, but the air itself seemed to swallow every syllable. Zorith raised a hand. From his palm unfurled a thin, shimmering thread of darkness, a filament of pure anti-sound. It snaked toward Vela's throat. "No!" Joran roared, but even his cry was muffled, as if heard through water. The thread touched her neck. She convulsed, and then silence. Not just quiet, true silence. The kind that swallows stars. Vela's eyes fluttered. Her body went limp. The light in her silver irises dimmed. Joran screamed her name. No sound answered. Guards burst in moments later. Alarms had triggered. But the intruders were gone. No trace. No heat signature. Just cold air and a lingering hum. Vela lay unconscious, breathing, but voiceless once more. Joran refused to leave her side. For 3 days he sat by her bed, holding her hand, talking to her. About their first escape, about the dunes, about Bolt eating a whole crate of space cakes and then howling at the moon. He told her jokes, stories, secrets, anything to reach her. On the 4th night, as he dozed in the chair, he felt it. Pressure. Her fingers curled weakly around his. He opened his eyes. Her lips moved. No sound came. But he understood. I'm still here. Tears spilled down his face. I know you are. She wrote on his palm with her fingertip. They took my voice, but not my mind, not my heart. He kissed her hand. Then we fight back, with or without words. Recovery was slow. Vela could communicate through writing, touch, expression. But the trauma lingered. Worse, the hollow chorus had marked her. In dreams, she heard whispers. In mirrors, shadows moved when she wasn't looking. The bond between her and Joran grew deeper, forged in shared fear and unwavering loyalty. Together, they devised a plan. If the hollow chorus fed on silence, then they would drown them in sound. Not weapons, not war, music. Zalvana culture revered sonic harmony. Songs that could heal, inspire, even disrupt dark energies. Ancient texts spoke of the dawn chant, a melody so powerful it had once shattered the first seal of the hollow chorus. But it had been lost, its notes scattered across ruins and star-etched tablets. Joran, with his scavenger's instincts and stubborn hope, led the search. He traveled to the Whispering Cliffs, where wind sang through stone pipes, to the sunken archive beneath the crystal sea, diving in a pressurized suit while Bolt waited anxiously on the surface and tried to eat the submersible's antenna. He bartered with nomadic traders, decoded crumbling scrolls, and even got arrested on a neutral moon for unauthorized resonance testing. He'd been trying to vibrate a locked door open with a tuning fork. But piece by piece, note by note, the dawn chant was rebuilt. And then betrayal. Lyra, the exiled tutor, sent a message. Not through official channels. Through Bolt. The dog returned from a routine patrol with a small crystal shard lodged in his fur. When scanned, it played a recording, Lyra's voice, urgent. I was wrong. I helped them awaken the chorus. Zorith isn't their leader, he's their prisoner. The chorus possesses him. They're gathering beneath the shattered spire, where the old seal broke. You must act before the eclipse of stillness, or all voices in this galaxy will vanish. Joran stared at the screen, heart pounding. He showed Vela. She read it, then looked at him, her eyes fierce. It was time. They assembled a team. Elite Zalvana warriors, scientists, musicians, and even a few rebel allies from other systems who had suffered under Zorith's raids. Joran insisted Bolt come too. He's saved us twice. He's earned it. The journey to the shattered spire was treacherous. A jagged mountain range where gravity shifted unpredictably and time itself seemed to stutter. Storms of static crackled in the air, erasing memories in flashes. More than once, Joran forgot why they were there, until Vela squeezed his hand, grounding him. At the base of the spire, they found the entrance. A gaping maw in the rock, pulsing with unnatural silence. Inside, the walls were lined with fossilized figures, beings frozen in silent screams, mouths open, eyes wide, victims of the chorus. Joran shivered. This place gives me the creeps worse than a sandworm's belly. Vela wrote on his arm. They feed on fear. Don't give them any. They descended, deeper, until they reached the Chamber of Echoes, a vast, cathedral-like cavern, lit by a single column of black light rising from the floor. At its center stood Zorith, suspended in midair, his body contorted, veins glowing with dark energy. Around him, hundreds of shadowy forms hovered, the hollow chorus, formless, hungry, drinking in the silence. And then, from the darkness, a voice, many voices, spoke as one. You bring noise. You bring chaos. You will be unmade. Joran stepped forward, the device containing the reconstructed dawn chant strapped to his back. You want silence? Fine. But you don't get to take hers. Vela moved beside him. She looked at him, smiled. Then, with deliberate slowness, she pulled a small, glowing instrument from her robe, a Zalvane lumaharpa, a stringed device that sang with light and tone. She handed it to him. Joran blinked. Me? I can't play. She pressed his fingers to the strings, wrote on his wrist, "Your heart knows the song. Play it." He took a breath, and began. The first note was shaky, then stronger, then alive. The harp responded to his touch, glowing brighter with each chord. The music wasn't perfect. It was raw, human, full of mistakes and passion. But it was real. It was love. It was defiance. The hollow chorus shrieked in silence, but Joran felt it. A pressure in his skull, a wave of cold fury. The black light wavered. Zorith twitched, and then Vela joined, not with sound, with movement. She danced. A ritual of remembrance, of resistance, of royalty reclaiming its soul. Every step, every gesture, every flicker of her hands sent ripples through the chamber. The Zalvane warriors began chanting. Not aloud, but in their minds, a psychic resonance that amplified the music. The spire trembled. Cracks spread through the ceiling. Light, real, golden, roaring light, broke through the darkness. The hollow chorus writhed, unraveling like smoke in wind. Their forms stretched, thinned, screamed into nothing. Zorith fell. Joran rushed to him as the others secured the chamber. The man was pale, gasping, his eyes finally clear. "They're gone," he rasped. I remember now. I was a scholar. I wanted to understand silence. But I opened a door I shouldn't have." Joran nodded. "We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after." Outside, the eclipse passed. Sunlight flooded the wasteland. And somewhere, deep in the ruins, a single bird sang. Back at the palace, Vela still couldn't speak. But she didn't need to. Weeks passed. Scientists studied the residual energy. Philosophers debated the nature of silence and sound. And Joran? He walked the halls with Bolt at his heels. Loved, respected, changed. One evening, as they sat on the balcony beneath a sky streaked with comet trails, Vela leaned her head on his shoulder. He smiled. "You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I miss your voice." She looked up at him. Then, slowly, she opened her mouth. Nothing came, but she kept trying. Again, and again, until on the third attempt a sound emerged. A whisper. "Joran." His breath stopped. She tried again. Stronger, clearer. "Joran, I love you." He pulled her into his arms, laughing, crying, spinning her around despite her protests. "You're back," he whispered. "You're really back." The next day, she addressed the people from the Star Spire balcony. Her voice, though still fragile, rang across the city. She spoke of unity, of resilience, of a human boy who saw a caged girl and chose kindness over fear. "And today," she said, taking Joran's hand, "I stand not just as your queen, but as a woman who found love in the most unexpected place. And I ask you, welcome your king, not because he rules beside me, but because his heart rules mine." The crowd erupted, not in silence, but in thunderous, glorious sound. Yet, as the celebrations began, high above in the cold void of space, a single satellite, ancient, dormant, buried in the debris field of a dead moon, blinked to life. Years rolled by like desert winds, soft and steady, carrying the golden dust of time across the dunes of Zalthra and the shining spires of Zalvane Prime. Peace settled over the kingdom like a warm cloak, woven from music, memory, and love. The hollow chorus was gone, sealed once more beneath layers of song and starlight, and the people thrived. Joran and Vela ruled not with power, but with kindness. And their greatest legacy wasn't laws or victories. It was family. One day, Bolt the battery-eating dog sired 6 wild pups with Nebula the 6-legged cat. No one asked how, it was best not to. On that same day, Vela smiled mysteriously and placed Joran's hand on her stomach. "You're going to be a father," she whispered. He fainted. They had their first child. A daughter with purple skin, white hair, and Joran's mischievous grin. They named her Lyra, meaning first light. Then came Kalen, a boy who could fix broken machines just by staring at them. Then tiny Moreau, who laughed so hard he made floating crystals chime. Then twins, Zen and Sari, who spoke in perfect harmony before they could walk. And finally, little Rin, born during a meteor shower, who giggled at thunder and cooed at stars. Their home, once a quiet palace chamber, became a joyful chaos of tiny feet, glowing toys, half-eaten snacks. Bolt still had issues, and bedtime stories told in 2 languages, one spoken, one written in light. Joran taught them how to salvage, how to fly, how to laugh in the face of danger. Vela taught them history, harmony, and the strength of silence when words weren't needed. They grew up knowing they were loved. And the galaxy? It watched in awe. The human king and the alien queen, once a runaway boy and a caged princess, had built something no empire could conquer, a home. On their 25th anniversary, the people lit 1,000,000 lanterns shaped like stars. The children danced. Bolt, now ancient and gray-muzzled, napped proudly on a velvet cushion labeled Royal Snacker. Joran looked at Vela, her silver eyes shimmering with joy, her hand in his. "We did good, didn't we?" he said. She squeezed his fingers and whispered, "We did better than good. We found forever." And under a sky painted with comets and constellations, the king and queen stood together, surrounded by laughter, love, and the future they had built. One heartbeat, one voice, one silent thank you at a time. It wasn't just a happy ending. It was a lifetime of them.